And Mr. Bates, let me ask you some questions. One of my favorite TV shows is The Office, which admittedly is a comedy about the business that you represent, but there's also some important lessons about what's going on in the office product industry in that show. And one of the things that I think is significant is how the industry has changed in the last 10 or 15 years. One of the things we know is it's faced many issues recently, some of which relate to the administration policies rather than to SBA programs. In your opinion, what can Congress and the SBA do without micromanaging to help small businesses that suffer when the government changes its buying procedures?
Well, I think education is a critical component. I mean, we heard a story here earlier where getting the word out in a quick, easy to understand way is important. But I do think that the choice of purchasing vehicle has a big impact on the ability of any small business to participate. And our general approach is there ought to be more competition, not less. So excessive contract bundling, things that limit the number of competitors on any given contract, really in the long run doesn't help the government. You get higher prices, less choice, less effective service to the end customer, and there's always a big disconnect if you talk to any of our members between what the people in the field say and what the people who let the contract say at headquarters. So there's a lot of goodwill here, but getting it connected through more competition is really the solution at the end of the day.
And I know I'm going to lose people who aren't fans of the show, but my kids and I, this is one of the favorite things we do together. There's a great episode where Dwight and Jim go out on a call to a customer who has placed most of their business with somebody where price is the primary objective. And they make a call to that competitor and leave the phone on the desk while they're having the conversation with the potential customer. Just to demonstrate the point that sometimes customer service is an important component in addition to pricing. You know, for your members, what types of challenges do you face in a government procurement system where price is such a high priority in breaking through and talking about the total contract performance and what your members can provide to be competitive in that type of an environment?
Well, I think one of the disturbing things is past performance has not been really adequately factored into the equation. A large number of our members at one point in time over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years have had more significant government business in many cases than they have today. And that whole positive history has been, I think, left by the wayside in a lot of cases. Also, again, I'll come back to the end user. There's a disconnect between the value that is actually provided when the product is ordered and delivered versus the people who are just responsible for making the purchase order, so to speak. There are also a lot of shenanigans, frankly, about pricing. In our industry, large number of products, difficult to audit and track. You have a lot of product substitutions, private label for branded product, different units of measure, all sorts of things that can go wrong to really change from what was actually bid to what is actually priced when it's delivered. So
what are some of the solutions to address those problems?
Well, I think the solutions are, one, that we do need to have legislation that focuses in on this and makes it clear that past performance is something that ought to be taken into effect. We obviously have to do a better job of getting the message out to the people who are involved in the procurement as well about what that value is, but they have to be empowered to recognize and take that into account. I think the other key issue here is that the whole shift towards sole sourcing, contract bundling, and I mean even, forgive me, but the Small Business Administration is not at the top of the list in terms of their purchasing from small business. And there needs to be more of walk the talk. If there's a goal, let's get good data in place, which your bill and other bills have started to do. Let's measure that information. Let's get it out where it's visible, and then I think people will perform. The other thing which hasn't come up today is there are fewer and fewer contracting officers government-wide who are out there. And so part of the lack of oversight or insufficient oversight is really related to the problem that there just aren't enough qualified people who are able to look into the details of a contract as they're reviewing bids before them. So.
Thank you. Ms. Dorfman, it's great to have you back, and we've had an opportunity to talk a little bit today about some of the issues and concerns historically with the Women's Procurement Program. We do know the government is falling short of its goal for contracting with women-owned businesses, and the SBA recently released the proposed rule I mentioned earlier for implementing the Women's Procurement Program, which will allow for set-asides. Allowing set-asides for small businesses as a whole has nearly doubled agency achievements. However, the rule will only allow for women-owned set-asides effectively in 3 very narrow industries, for example, kitchen cabinet manufacturing. Apart from set-asides, then what can the SBA do to help women-owned businesses that are small businesses enter and compete in the federal marketplace?
Well, thank you. First of all, I would say that the SBA needs an attitude adjustment. I really would hope that the SBA would start to go back to its core mission and assist small businesses, whether it's implementing a program that was passed by Congress as Congress has intended, or providing the funding needed to the regional offices which are struggling to provide the real resources that are needed. We do need to also see them working hand in hand with the small business committees so that we can work together as a team, us included, to assist small businesses get to the next level. I spoke a lot about transparency and the numbers, which also would be part of the accountability process. I believe that's very strongly. We also, the number of PCRs, 66. Well, back when the spending wasn't so great, it was about 125 PCRs, and obviously we need to increase the PCRs. I'm very glad to hear today that now we're not having them train small businesses, but they're actually going back to doing the job that they should be doing, which is making sure that contracts, as they come forward, do provide for small businesses to be able to access part of those contracts, and I'd like to see more and more of that. And then also, access to capital is huge for women. We still are finding it challenging to get the amount of funding we need to grow our businesses. And even with the SBA, if we get a loan, it's generally not to the amount of money that we need for the small business owner to grow at the rate that she needs to grow.